Hi everybody, it's Tanya Howard with Altruistically Yours. This specific training will talk about dismissing a volunteer from your organization. One common misconception is that volunteers cannot be fired. However, dismissal of a volunteer is sometimes necessary in order to maintain the integrity of the volunteer program and a high level of service. Both staff and volunteers deserve to be a part of a program that has a high level of integrity and results, and one that has a pleasant work environment. When one volunteer disrupts these tasks, everyone involved in the program is affected. Whenever a volunteer needs to be dismissed, the proper process should be established beforehand in order to make the process easier and prevent further problems. There are a variety of reasons why a volunteer may be dismissed from a volunteer program. Could be poor work performance or even problematic volunteers that discredit the organization's mission. There are three main categories that may be considered in terminating a volunteer's service to an organization. First, there are performance problems. Secondly, there are conduct problems. And thirdly, there are economic problems. Performance problems are directly related to the volunteer role that the volunteer is supposed to serve. Reasons to terminate or dismiss may include poor quality of work, tardiness or absence from work, and even failure to improve after being spoken to. Conduct problems may include a wide range of activities specifically related to the volunteer's actions. Could be poor attendance, poor reliability, inappropriate behavior, and even actions dealing with clients or staff. Unfortunately, economic problems may result from a cut in funding to the volunteer program. Properly addressing these issues must be followed specifically by guidelines set for dismissal from a volunteer program. The volunteer program's policies and procedures have to be clear on what behaviors will and will not be tolerated, as well as those behaviors that will cause immediate dismissal from the volunteer program. These behaviors have to specifically be addressed in the organization's volunteer handbook, provided in the volunteer orientation, and then reinforced again in volunteer training. Many volunteer programs establish a policy that includes a verbal and written warning before completely dismissing a volunteer. Some actions constitute immediate dismissal. Could be actions that threaten the safety of others, for example, clients, volunteers, staff, breach of confidentiality, misrepresentation of the organization, and even criminal conduct. A disciplinary system for the volunteer program can be created. If the situation deteriorates and the volunteer needs to be removed, the act of firing a volunteer can be very uncomfortable. However, dismissing a volunteer is less confrontational than dismissing an employee. To prevent conflict, a supervisor must employ a few tactics that will keep the situation under control. First, a meeting should be held in a private setting, be documented, and a third person should be in the room to serve as a witness to the termination or dismissal. The supervisor must remain calm and in control, and keep the discussion brief and to the point. The reason for dismissal should be given verbally and in written documentation. It should be signed by the terminated or dismissed volunteer, and comments should focus specifically on the performance of the individual. The supervisor should not allow the individual to refute any comments to previous actions, which could escalate the situation. The decision to terminate is final and cannot be reversed. Finally, the individual should return anything related to the volunteer program, for example, ID badges, parking access, etc., and should be escorted from the building. Handling the situation with responsibility and reverence will help in making the difficult situation much easier. So here's a checklist for dismissing a volunteer. Discuss reasons for volunteer dismissal with appropriate paid staff. Meet with the volunteer in a quiet, private setting. State the purpose of the meeting. Identify the volunteer's expected behavior from the job description, evaluations, etc. Describe observed behavior. Cite the specific examples of inappropriate behavior. Compliment the volunteer on positive aspects of performance. Release the volunteer from duty without reprimand or apology. Document the conversation in writing and have a witness if possible. If you need help creating volunteer dismissal policies and procedures, please email Tanya@altruisticallyyours.com.